actually owns said media outlet, that what I always find particularly interesting, all in one easy-to-read location to help you spot media bias and better understand your own reading habits. For instance, I just saw a story about how a man who used a megaphone to lead an attack on police during the January 6th riot got 7 years in prison. And I could see the bias, compare headlines, and the total number of reporting sources. Huh, I would have thought that an attack on gotten a bit more coverage on the right. Plus, they have a blind spot feed that lets you check out news from beyond your regular haunts, a headline comparison feature, and even a weird news newsletter, which is just a super fun way to keep up on the more out there stories of the week. So if you are looking for a great way to stay informed and a better tool to think critically about your news, you should definitely give Ground News a try. By heading to ground.news.
Fucking Fast and Furious.
Dominic Toretto. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Dominic Toretto was introduced to street racing at a young age, a passion that eventually evolved into a series of high-stake heists. Over the years, Toretto has demonstrated a unique set of skills that extend beyond the driver's seat. His physical strength and combat abilities make him formidable in close quarters, but it is his strategic mind and loyalty to his crew that are most alarming. Toretto's life shifted dramatically when he chose to protect an undercover police officer, illustrating his capacity for unpredictable decisions driven by personal codes rather than conventional morality. Dominic's crew, a tight-knit group resembling a family more than a team, is capable of executing complex operations that rival some military missions. Their loyalty, driven by Toretto's charisma and leadership, makes them particularly dangerous. Furthermore, his connections extend globally, involving hackers, mercenaries, and other operatives that could complicate apprehension efforts. Our first move is to cut off Toretto's connections temporarily to prevent group intervention during capture. I'll implement signal jammers to disrupt communication and employ counter-surveillance measures to ensure no digital footprint or camera recordings can be traced back to the operation. Approaching Toretto requires a tactical advantage, particularly when he's out of his vehicle. I'll deploy a sedative projectile aimed to incapacitate him from a distance. Given his reflexes, multiple hidden launchers will be set up to cover all potential escape routes. Should the situation escalate to close combat, the plan is to engage him physically. Targeted strikes to pressure points and joints will be employed to reduce his combat effectiveness rapidly. In the event that Dominic reaches his car, specifically the 1971 Plymouth GTX, known for reaching speeds of up to 269 miles per hour, a high-speed pursuit will be initiated. My Batmobile, upgraded with boost thrusters, is capable of reaching speeds up to 350 miles per hour, surpassing Toretto's fastest known vehicle speeds. This advantage will be critical in ensuring he cannot escape. The pursuit will be supported by advanced capture technologies, including a grappler to physically tether Toretto's vehicle and EMP devices to neutralize his vehicle. Once captured, Toretto will be held in a mobile containment unit designed to withstand his strength and any potential external breaches. Transport to a secure facility will be immediate, with multiple decoy routes used to mislead any potential rescue attempts. Given Toretto's influence and capabilities, a standard prison will not suffice. A specialized containment solution will be engineered, emphasizing psychological restraint and minimal human contact to mitigate his charismatic influence over others. In conclusion, while Dominic Toretto's loyalty to his family and his exceptional skills demand respect, they necessitate a meticulously planned response. We're not just outpacing a skilled driver, we're outmaneuvering a leader with the power of family on his side. This requires precision and readiness for any unforeseen challenges. I must proceed with the utmost caution.
Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is filled with some of the most iconic video game characters of all time. So many different characters from so many different franchises. What if you forget? Well, luckily there's a stage that can help us with that. In the background of the boxing ring stage, the giant television screen in the back will give each and every character their own unique nickname. This is a really cool Easter egg, and these titles can range from references to their home series to names that just sound cool. Yeah, not all of these are bangers, but these are pretty cool to look at, so I thought it would be fun to rank all of them from the worst to the best. Okay, I know this sounds like a really stupid idea here. Believe it or not, I have been requested to do this video a lot. years, but I never truly considered doing it before two things. One, I saw a video by Shady Brothers Productions ranking all the Brawl Wiimote sounds, which conceptually is as silly as this, but I also really liked his video. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Secondly, I have a massive 200k special I'm working on, so I
Yeah, let me play Eula instead for the physical right now. I feel like she gets a lot less attention.
I'm judging these based on two things.
Even though I spent a lot of money on this fucking character.
Titles, so my favorites are the ones that excel. Even if you don't care much for my personal ranking, I hope this video will be at least a fun showcase of all the titles, since I certainly had fun with them. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. We're gonna be
May as well get her up to.
Mostly pretty similar quality-wise within two. So here we have our.
I'm hoarding all my materials and stuff for next battle pass.
So starting off the list, we have 100 Diddy Kong.
But why not? Impatience can do this.
Well, at least it's not cool sounding at all, but this can apply to so many other characters. I mean, hearing that without character context, I don't even think Diddy Kong would have fun. Should have made it.
No one escapes my sight! Oh, nice to come out. My guiding stuff. Warren, here's the gun! Blood of Frost!
Sadly, Mary was basically the fun. I'm not going to start with the third one. I'm not going to 97, Sora,
Eye for an eye.
yes,
More
this
speed.
sounds like a little kid posting with it. It's nice to feel
Get him.
smart better now.
Not now.
He's someone he is. And he's fine. Alpha, not trained. Honestly, this one might be later, but Alpha. 54, range and positive travel.
Robots have physical resistance,
But I honestly
so superconduct is even more important to apply.
Crush.
This isn't the same as the last one, but it doesn't have its own name.
Rack and ruin.
This can apply to like half. It's got a bit more flair to it than the last few, but it's
I'm pretty sure.
applies
Fuck you.
Beg for mercy.
you know, one to just have the title be consistent. You can imagine if I could say one. Back in. This is basically no. Okay, and you can be intimidated by the describe.
Shudder.
At least it's on board for you. The trainer is
Get him.
87. Mental spirit.
Beg for mercy.
This just feels like someone looked at Wolf's design and threw a bunch of adjectives. Silver and wolf and merchants. It's all just very wordy and not particularly intimidating or cool. Isabel, the mayor's assistant. I mean, that just sounds like the downplay. It doesn't sound like I'm paying opponents at all, just a random assistant for the real challenge. I definitely would have changed this so the focus is more on Isabel herself. Now it's time for D tier, which is the smallest one of these videos. This is
The night is cold. Hush. Let it rain. Crush. Freeze.
Humans, though, they have reduced physical resistance.
More speed.
Too far. This isn't really exciting at all, but it's at least kind of a
God fucking damn it.
This is another one that's I definitely feel like they could have cut the of legend. I don't care if adding of legend is more accurate. Hyrule 82, Zelda, Hyrule's Wise Princess. I just feel like this doesn't really have a good ring to it. Like, sure, she's the princess of Hyrule that holds the Triforce of Wisdom, but I'm not sure that's really that exciting of a boxing game. 81, Pac-Man, the Yellow Vein of Ghosts. Okay, this one is definitely too wordy. I feel like they did not need to send these yellow. At least the concept does seem somewhat. 80, Simon, Living Vein. This also just doesn't feel that great to say, right? If I was evil, I would be at least a little bit intimidated by that. 79, King Dedede, Self-Made King. I just think this one sounds sort of mid. There's really nothing notable about it. It does also apparently come from Kirby Star Allies, which everyone says is one of the most boring Kirby. 78,
Nice.
Greninja, Master of Stealth, and 77, Lucario, Master of Aura. These two are both basically on the same level. They sound kind of cool, but at the same time pretty generic, especially in the case of Greninja. At least Lucario's is a bit more personal to him with the use of Aura. Alright, C tier time. This is for the titles that are mostly pretty okay, but just aren't then. Functional, but just not. 76.
Knights and aristocrats share the same cultural heritage, but the knights had enough sense to do away with all the superfluous details. Don't be scared. Not now. No one escapes my sight. Go, go, Pip. Let's seal the deal.
Now you got it. Don't be a killjoy. We've only just begun. Looks like I went too far.
Blood of Frost.
72. This really does sound to me.
I condemn you.
You said it without context. What does that mean?
Magical lamp.
No, who are you targeting?
Let it rain. Stars, shine for me. The night is... Shudder. More speed. Beg for mercy. Freeze to the core.
Ah, nice midriff.
Rack and ruin.
I can still.
Fine, and I'm totally up to date. Excited to be. Plus the ages of it. 64, Shulk the Missionary. This is kind of a cool play on his ability to see into the future. It's not the most exciting thing. 63, Captain Falcon the Supersonic Slugger. This is pretty catchy, but I just feel like not the best fit for Captain Falcon. I mean, when you hear it, I think a certain other character probably comes to mind first. 62, Samus, Bounty Hunter Extraordinaire. Alright, now we're starting to pick up a little bit, as this one is fairly solid. Still not the most special, but perfectly serviceable.
Crush.
61, Gunfight Squad Quack. This is kind of a few ways to represent all three members of the Duck Trio. Dog, and the guy. I don't really think it works well as a title, though.
Beg for mercy.
16, that's the PSI Powerhouse. I don't have much to say on this one, it's just pretty solid. 59, Sheep.
Eye for an eye.
This definitely does sound pretty cool, but I feel like there might have been a better choice. I'm not sure what exactly they could have gone for, but this just doesn't feel like it. I know that sounds really stupid, but that's just what I think of.
Not now.
8, Falco, Proud Space Saints. Now this is a much better one from the Star Fox series. While I still wouldn't say it's the most exciting thing, it does fit Falco pretty well. 57, Water Plant. Love the rhyme here, and it's a pretty fun one. I think at first it would have dropped me more, but it's still pretty strong there. 56, Ken, the Fire Breathing Fence. This comes directly from Street Fighter, so they can get this title makes a few seconds. Even outside of that, it's pretty understandable because Ken is going to be doing a lot of
Shudder.
It's kind of wordy, but I still think it sounds good. 55, GK Rule, the Kremlin Commander. I was honestly kind of surprised they didn't do anything with being a king, but I was surprised they could. His name already gets across that he's a king, and now this shows him he commands an entire army. A pretty good one. 4, each Princess of Toadstool. Okay, maybe this deserves to be lower, but I like how it's a reference to Princess Peach's old name, Princess Toadstool. Like I said, Toadstool is just her last name, but whatever. 53, Bayonetta Unloaded. This is another title given to her from her game, so it also sounds kind of cool. I really don't think there was any better choice. 52, Ryu Eternal Wonder. Like Ken, this is an official title.
Let's see how she does on domains. I was gonna do a boss fight instead,
of the series, Ryu probably wouldn't be
but I mean, there's enough HP here as well.
Under the umbrella, or you'll get soaked.
This does sound kind of neat, but like Sheik, I
You
feel like
can't
it
risk
wasn't the
catching a
absolute
cold,
choice.
because it might
But
turn
also
into
could have been
something
a
more
lot worse. They could have
serious.
just called
And
it
if
the
that
Fall.
happens,
50. Pokemon
I
Trainer
thought
wants to
avenging
be
my
the
clan
very
by
best.
picking on the
Okay,
sick
I
one.
love the concept of this one. It's a reference to the opening lines of the That's really cool, but I also think they executed it. This is very wordy, and I don't think it had to be. Just having the title be the very best would have been a perfect. 49, Lucina, Warrior from a Doomed Future. While a bit wordy, this does sound pretty cool. I'm not a professional in Fire Emblem lore, but I think that's a pretty fitting title for her as well. 48, Violet, Shindy. Call me an edgelord, but I just think adding demon works pretty well as an intimidating title. This is also apparently taken directly from Fire Emblem, but again, 47. In December. Coming from someone who knows nothing about Dragon Quest, I just like the sound of this. I don't know what a Dragovian is, but it's a cool sounding word. I also don't want to Google it in fear that it might make the sound more. 46, Snake, the Legendary Mercenary. 45, Terry, the Legendary Wolf. These are sort of more specific spins on the legendary hero name we saw from Eric earlier. Since these fit much better with their respective characters, I like these more. And of the two, I like Terry the most, but this just reminds me of the stupid werewolf. 44, Corrin, Blood of Dragons. This is quite literally the only time Corrin has done something remotely. This is probably referencing the fact that he is a dragon, but using blood as a way to make that relation is pretty good. Now it's time for the B tiers, the ones I think are pretty good. 43, Dark Samus, Phazon Incarnate. Not only does it fit the character, obviously being a Phazon clone of Samus, it's just a really cool sounding way of putting it. 42, Roy the Young Lion. I'm not really sure what it is about this one that makes me like it so much. It comes from the Fire Emblem series itself, so it's a very fitting name, and I think it fits with his personality and Smash of being very impressive. 41, Inkling, Part Kid, Part Squid. The reference for this one is obvious, being the iconic ad saying, "You're a kid now, you're a squid." While this is certainly a funny reference, it's not really an intimidating title by any means. 40, Young Link, Master of the Ocarina. Obviously, I love that this references the Ocarina of time, which I still think should be used in one of his taunts, but whatever. The use of the word master also reminds me of the Master Sword, but I have no clue if that was intentional. I am surprised this title isn't the Hero of Time, but this does work pretty well. 39, Min Min the Ramen Bomber. This apparently comes straight from ARMS, and yep, that works pretty good. Okay, well the ramen part works, I'm not sure about the bomb. 38, Politana, Goddess of Light. This is her official title.
No, I'd say it
series, and I
fits.
can't think of a better fit. It doesn't really have any crazy flair to it, but it's nice and simple. 37, Richter, Azure Vampire Assassin. The phrase Vampire Assassin goes crazy hard, but the Azure part doesn't always work. What if I really want to play Purple Richter instead of Azure? 36, Joker, the Great Phantom. Phantom Thief, Party of Persona 5. I think they honestly could have gotten away with just Phantom Thief, but adding the Great to it does make him seem a little bit more important. 35, Daisy, Saraslin's Chipper Princess. I always like to see Saraslan get mentioned, especially since, you know, Nintendo refused to release Super Mario Land on Nintendo Switch Online. Chipper's also a pretty good word to describe Daisy. 34, Link, Champion of Hyrule. I can't think of anything better to call him. Sure, they could have went with the Hero of the Wild, which is technically this Link's official title in the Zelda series, but I think throwing on Champion was important here. Him being Zelda's champion is a very important aspect of Breath of the Wild, and I think that makes this a pretty fitting title. 33, Romac, Bruiser from the Bronx. And it's finally time we see the main man himself. I mean, this is his stage. I just really like the sound of this. It makes Max sound a lot tougher than 32, Robin the Tactician. Okay, I like this one just because it rhymes and it's fun to say. Plus, he is both of those things in Fire
Freeze to the core.
a tactician, and you can see him use plenty of magic with Smash. 31, Shirasu Samus, the Warrior Within. This is just a really clever play on words. The Warrior Within is a somewhat common phrase, but finding it here is kind of funny because Shirasu Samus is of course the warrior within the Samus City. 30, Pichu Shock You. This is how you do a more easy sounding title. There's basically no way to make Pichu sound intimidating, so going with the fun based on its electric attack is a really good choice. King up, Kazuya, the Iron Fist of Darkness. Perfectly intimidating, comes straight from Tekken, pretty much no bugs. 28, Lucas, the boy from nowhere. Without context of other this makes Lucas sound really mysterious, like he just showed up out of the blue with his crazy powers. However, with context, this is a cool play on the fact that Lucas is from a place called. I mean, they even played on this for a Smash 4 announcement. 27, Ludwig, Papa's Prodigy. Ludwig being my favorite Googling probably comes out, but the alliteration here works very well, and both words fit perfect. It's also usually the hardest to do in these command line games, so him being given the title of Prodigy makes complete sense. 26, Mr. Game & Watch, Master of Defending. I mean, I think this is just the best phrase they could have to make a black character sound cool, not black now. 25, Zombie Nitro. Like the Blitz heroes, each different costumes also have their own unique titles. I really like this one. It fits perfectly with how the zombie spawns at night in Minecraft. It sort of sounds like some sort of monster in a scary story. 24, Meta Knight, the Math Swordsman. Absolutely hits all the right bases. Gets the main
My Eula's really sad.
sword and makes it sounding very mysterious. 23, Mega Man Blue Bomber. This rolls off the tongue a bit better than Min Min's did, and it's just more iconic in general. He's referred to this in the Mega Man series several times, so there's really no better fit. Plus, him being a bomber makes more sense here because look, he can explode. 22, Dark Pit, Darkwing, Doppelganger. Such a fun one to say, and it really encapsulates Dark Pit as a person. He's pissed. 21, Mewtwo, A Legendary Awakens. If anyone was going to have Legend in their title, it has to be Mewtwo. In the face of legendary Pokemon, this is a no-brainer. As it turns out, this is also a direct reference to a Pokemon movie, that big Genesect and the Legend of Awakens. I can't think of a better one for this guy, so he certainly is useless spot.
Crush.
Now it's time for the ones I really like. These usually consist of the coolest sounding names, the funniest, or the best references. 20, Villager, Mayor, Smash. Maybe this isn't the best reference nowadays, since you were technically only ever the mayor in Animal Crossing New League, but that game's sorted, so I like to see. This is also told as references to the first Animal Crossing stage in Smash, obviously being Smash. Although technically there are not enough characters to title your town Smash for one game, so this is really impossible. That's what the kids call epic fail.
I meant to just tap fuck.
This comes directly from Final Fantasy VII and is what he plays with me. I will say I haven't gotten a chance to play the game myself, but even without context, it does just sound good. 18, Toothlink, Biggie Warrior. I love the alliteration. Referencing his main tool alliteration makes so much sense. He's easily got the best title. 17, Iggy the Laughing Prankster. Yeah, pretty much just like this because I imagine he's doing control. He's just like me, 16, Luigi the Eternal Understuff. I really like how this one sounds, and it makes Luigi make Oakland Aria. Don't make it sound lame or something like Maria's number 2, instead they make it sound lame. In fact, it's actually a reference to the Luigi of Lost Texas.
Vengeance will be mine.
Pretty neat place to pull. Smash references to previous Smash games are always nice to see. 15,
Eye for an
Enderman,
eye.
and take what I said about Zombie and turn it up even higher. This description really feels like some sort of horror monster, and that is basically what an Enderman is, so pretty good job there. Even outside of Minecraft, using the word End makes this guy sound like he's from the End time of something, sort of deadly desolate land. And again, that's also pretty fitting with the End dimension actually. 14. Wario Scoundrel with a Heart of
Shudder.
Gold.
Not now.
Obviously, this is a play on the phrase Heart of Gold, but replace it with something that better than Wario. Plus, Gold is also a major part of his characters. This was a perfect phrase for Wario to take his spin on. 13. Fifth Trainer.
I
My
condemn
man.
you.
There is so much to talk about with this one. Maybe you get confused right now because we saw Wii Fit Trainer earlier in the list with the title Unicorn, which is a important. So how are they now here at 18? Well, Wii Fit Trainer is the only character to have different boxing ring titles based on gender. All other gender swap characters share the same titles, and as far as I can tell, there is no reason these two should be any different. I mean, male Wii Fit Trainer does yoga too, so he could have been a yoga warrior. But I'm happy he isn't because the PMI Bandit is so much fun. Perfect use of alliteration, and it's not something that I would have ever come up with. Such a great name for an exercise-based character. 12. Ice Climbers Bone Chilling Duo. This one goes pretty dang hard. Bone Chilling can often mean something scary is about to happen, so that makes this title sound pretty intimidating. The reason it's attached to them is because they're ice-based. They're going to make those bones pretty chilly. 11. Incineroar, the Ring's Raging Flame. Now this just sounds like a wrestler title. It's being on the stage boxing ring, and the Raging Flame certainly applies to Incineroar. I can't think of anything better to drum up the proper amount of fear to the person it's facing. For our top 10, we got them all placed in a tier of their own, S tier. It was really hard to order this section. Honestly, I understand pretty
How
much
can I
anyone
make a
here
strong
taking
team
top
for
spot.
Eula?
Starting off 10.
Well, I mean, actually,
This name is used all the time in Zelda.
the strongest team for Eula right now is Hyper Bloom.
King or Breaking Evil might have been a bit better, but this is still good. It makes complete sense that the more intimidating characters get cooler sounding names.
That's
We're gonna
very
see
sad.
them up. 9. Roy the Koopa. I don't even have to say Roy Koopa, we know which Koopa. This may seem dumb to place so high, but I honestly find the simplicity of this one to be super fun. It's one of the most memorable titles to me, and I think it fits Roy Koopa pretty dang well. And just look at those cool sunglasses. 8. Lemmy Wacky War Machine.
And
this is definitely my favorite.
since I can't make her a hyper carry,
Wacky makes complete sense. But having War Machine
since I don't have Bennett
so
built, and I have no intentions of ever building
but that in turn makes it
him,
perfect name for Lemmy.
I forgot his name.
Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel. This was the only choice they had. It's what everyone knows him as. Even without context, the name just sounds cool, which is why it easily puts him into S tier. 6. Sonic the Blue Blur. Very similar story to Sephiroth. This is pretty much the only clear choice for a name. I just like how Blue Blur rolls off the tongue a bit better, and it's a really good way of conveying his super speed without outright saying it. 5. Bowser, King of the Koopas. Okay, this one might be a little bit of a cheat, but for some reason, I always just enjoy saying King of the Koopas. Like, this is something completely outside of Smash. Pretty much half the time I see Bowser, I call him King. Realistically, maybe this deserves to be a lot lower, but to be fair to me, I think it's the best choice for Bowser regardless. I mean, he's referred to this several times in the Mario series, so there's really no reason to go with something else. 4. Kirby the Pink Demon. They went hard on this one. It really makes it feel like Kirby is hiding something behind that joyous smile. It just also got such a good ring to it. I feel like it also sort of references how dark people claim the Kirby lore is. I've only played a few, so I can't say I'm particularly familiar with it, but hey, this seems to go with the lore kind of well. This is also a direct reference to Kirby's title in Kirby Superstar's Arena mode. So yeah, there's a lot of layers to why this one works so well. 3. Ridley, Cunning God of Death. Whoa, okay, buddy. This one goes crazy. Every single word builds such a terrifying image, and it fits Ridley perfectly. I love that it's not just God of Death, but they threw on Cunning to show how smart this guy is, too. This is easily the most intimidating name of the bunch. Plus, it even comes from Metroid Zero Mission's Japanese website, so it's got a decent origin on top of that. I absolutely love this one. You're crazy if you don't have it. 2. Rob, the last of his kind. I like this one a lot for 2 reasons. 1, I mean, it just sounds cool. Being the last survivor of anything generally means you're pretty strong to survive whatever took out the rest of you. But most importantly, this is a reference to
Unless you're Aang and you ran away.
Smash before, but this is the best example of that. In Brawl Story Mode, all of the other Robs basically, the Rob we play as was the Ancient Minister, who eventually breaks free after all of his brothers die. That is a fantastic reference for a title, which is what makes it easily one of my favorites. Okay, I know you guys aren't going to agree with number 1, but 1, Mario, Mr. Video Game himself. In a game filled with all these other video game mascots, this one goes kinda hard. Characters like Pikachu, Sonic, and more all have millions of fans worldwide. They can never. Mario is the face of video games, and no one else can even touch on that. So this title, proudly proclaiming that he's the most famous,
I tried
in my book,
Quicken.
is pretty cool. Plus, I also just have a Mario
But
list.
there are no
Anyways,
quick and
that's
sub
it for this video.
DPSs
Are you all astronauts
that
who
exist.
hate me for making fun of Alf? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to keep this conclusion short so I can get back to work on my big video. I know this may have been a silly concept, but I really hope you all did enjoy watching this regardless. I know I had fun going through all the news myself. But anyways, Ride Bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.
I can try Shanyan. Hold on.
Sooner or later, Fredbear's Family Diner. This is where it all began. The animatronic empire, the string of deaths, and William's descent into madness. Everything stemmed from this one location. Or at least, that's what we all thought, until today. Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory, where it is finally time. Today, I graduate from FNAF Boy to FNAF Man, and take on my very first FNAF theory. Although, I say that, I have actually...
Dang it. Plunging doesn't work. Why would you do this?
Nah, not too bad, Gregory's a robot, it's alright. I mean, to be fair, that was both of our sin, but, you know. I threw something out, my first FNAF theory, I threw something out. Yeah. Gregor's Robot, first FNAF theory, and look how well received it's been. Look how good that's gone wrong for us. It's done so well for all of us. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? But don't worry, theorists. I promise today's theory is way less crazy. Hopefully. Because today, I'm going to be tackling one simple, teeny tiny detail that I think is really important to understanding this franchise. Hell 1 and 2 was full of collectibles, most of which you get from a prize machine after you minigames. Some are set prizes that relate to the level you just completed, like Sun Figure for beating the first daycare mission, or a meat pretzel for beating the Fazbear Theatre. However, after you beat the game, there are some extra prizes to collect that are given to you at random by a stage. Usually this is just extra plushies, models, or food, but sometimes you get posters, and one of these posters stood out above all the rest. It ends up on the back wall right next to the Fazbranch entrance for the Princess Quest mini-game. It's a poster promoting Fall Fest 1970. Now, to the FNAF community, Fall Fest is nothing new. We first saw this name pop up almost 5
I better not be the only one who thinks this, but this is really fucking ugly. With these fucking squares showing up. I already said this before when I was talking with Toryu, but it looks like it's a bug. And these really weren't supposed to be here. Couldn't they have come up with anything better? Was Genshin really just lazy? And don't you dare come up with the argument that there's a lore reason things are like this. Lore doesn't justify ugly shit.
She starts the search in 1979, seeming to imply that this was when the diner was founded.
Lore can't be used to justify anything, period.
And that's not all. Look at the design of this poster. While it's advertising Fall Fest, it's not inherently spooky like the event you see in person Fredbear. Instead, it has a couple of elements. It's mostly designed to look like an old two-tone circus poster, complete with a giant circus tent right in it. And this isn't the first time Steel Wool has offered us hints that circuses might be important to this franchise. There's the mini-games in Hell 1 and 2, like Carousel and Bazablast. There's the circus costumes that are down in the basement of Ruin. There's even circus-themed Funko merch. Clearly, Steel Wool is beating us over the head with this circus thing for a reason. But why? Well, back in 2022, in the build-up to Security Breach's Xbox port, Steel Wool did an interview with Game Jolt to talk about how they made Security Breach, give some updates on Ruin's development, and drop some little hints towards what might be coming down the pipeline for them and the FNAF franchise. And when asked what kind of game they'd like to make in the future, they said this.
One thing that I've always loved is that that's kind of like the origin of like Fazbear Entertainment has now.
Staying here. I'd like to have a bring back into the 70s.
They want to create a game about the origins of Freddy's set in the 70s. Most of us at the time assumed this would just be Fredbear's Family Diner, but with all this circus imagery popping up, it begs the question, what if Fredbear's Family Diner wasn't the origin of Freddy's? What if instead it was this circus? Fall Fest 1970. And once I realised that, things started to fall into place. This poster is the key to clarifying some massive holes in the FNAF timeline. It confirms a number of things we've been predicting for a while, and it shines a little more light on the franchise's latest villain.
So is this guy actually gonna come to life this time?
After all, whoops. So, you better grab your popcorn, theorists, because the show is about to begin, and I'm going to reveal to you the true origins of Freddy's. But just before we get into that, I need to talk to you about something else that's really important. It's something you may have seen if you watch our own sister location Style Theory, but we have an exciting theorist event coming up. We are putting on a fashion show. It's called Creators in Fashion, and it is the first of its kind. Not just because a fashion show has never been done on YouTube before, although that is pretty cool, but because we're getting weird with it. How weird? Well, the first runway of the night is going to be FNAF themed. You heard that right, we've had FNAF games, a FNAF movie, a FNAF cookbook, and now FNAF is completing the theorist gauntlet and getting a FNAF runway. Although, if you've ever bought a high quality FNAF merch, FNAF being high fashion, may not be that surprising. But what might be surprising is what creators we have planned for the event. It's called Creators in Fashion after all, so we wanted to make sure we were spotlighting creators
Hey, this is
from all
working.
corners of the internet and make this one of
No,
a
it's
kind
not.
event even more special. We've got the likes of ZHC, Seek Discomfort, Cassie Poe, and Critical Role all getting glammed up to strut their stuff. We've got Simply Nailogical providing nails for the event, and the whole thing is going to be commentated by Rosanna Pansino and Trisha Hirschberger. Talk about star power. But of course, we couldn't do a fashion show by theorists without some weird little theorist antics going on. Besides the FNAF runway, we've also got Dogs runway. And no, I'm not talking about something. I mean literal dogs strutting up and down, and I'm not lying to you when I say they look both adorable and fierce. Speaking of fierce, we've also got our amazingly talented host of Style Theory, Amy Newton, centre stage to co-host this event alongside the man that I know have been missing. That's right, Matt Pan is coming back to host this very, very special event. And to celebrate, we're going to be drenching the man live on stage. Maybe it's water, maybe it's Nickelodeon slime, who knows?
Well, it's easier for the animators. Plus, it makes it really simple and obvious to know where the weak spot should be for the player if they want a headshot.
Because believe me, you do not
With
want to miss
both.
this. Amy has a lot more surprises for you guys up those lacy sleeves. So remember, that's April 25th, 2:30 p.m. PST, right here on
But yeah, it's unrealistic that their technology uses actual legs, when our technology hasn't even gotten there yet.
Changing up the entire beginning of the timeline. Again, it's a pretty big play, and while there have been a number of
There are walking machines now, but that's really all they can do. Walk.
Let's take a look at one of the more
And they're not very good at it.
It's that, so I can show you where I'm coming from. In the basement of the Ruined DLC where you find the Mimic, there are two costumes hanging up. An old lady blackbird and an elephant dressed as a clown. In the game files, there's also a lion wearing a varsity jacket. Three animals, all associated
How's your
with
picture taken?
servants. Elephants often perform tricks. Lions will regularly tame.
What's
lion
sus?
tamers, while crows
Dun
will
dun 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 dun.
They do
Da da dun.
circus focus.
Dun 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 dun.
Literally dressed as a clown. It doesn't get more circusy than that. But the most important part isn't actually their circus theme. It's the fact they aren't animatronic suits. In our initial theory on Ruin, we talked about how these costumes seem to be related to circus babies because, you know, circus.
Don't worry, if you fall on water, you take no fall damage. Video game logic.
They were all animatronics, and complex ones at that. Why then have physical costumes? They wouldn't unless these costumes actually something circus themed that was before animatronics were part of this franchise. In the Mimic, not the robot, the Tales from the Pizza Place story named after him, we learn of a character named Edwin, who owns a robotics company, getting big off of making a robot vacuum cleaner. However, with the birth of his son, the death of his wife, and then the crippling pressure of running his own business, he decides to sell the company to none other than Fazbear Entertainment. Why does Fazbear agree to purchase? Because they want Edwin for his robotics knowledge. Specifically, they want him to turn their character costumes into full-blown animatronics. We've seen him do exactly this with Chica in the first few pages of the story. Later on, he goes on to explain that this is the 18th character he asked to create, describing the collection as, quote, circus-like array of animal and other character costumes. Circus-like, you said. We believed for a long time that Edwin is the book's parallel for Henry, the animatronic genius that helped Afton to grow Fazbear into the animatronic empire we know today. So the circus-themed costumes we see in the basement of Ruin likely came from that same time period, a period where Henry was transforming costumes into animatronics. And these costumes aren't Henry's only connection to the circus either. When Charlie goes back to her childhood home in Silver Eyes, she looks through Henry's office and finds an assortment of books that, quote, would have seemed eclectic to anyone who didn't know them. There were books on biology and anatomy, some on human beings.
Hey, what the fuck?
Books about the history of the traveling carnival and of the circus. There are books about child development, about myths and legends, and about sewing patterns and techniques. There were volumes that claimed to be about trickster gods, about quilting bees, and about football cheering squads and their mascots. Most of these make a lot of sense. Things like anatomy, mascots, sewing patterns, it all ties
If we felt it from all the way here, they probably felt it all the way back in Fontaine too.
Catering to kids, and so was trying to figure out how to best.
Someone's gonna come and investigate.
The anatomy books and ties it to Henry creating robot versions of his daughter Charlotte. But there's one selection that has always stood out as odd, one that I never had an explanation for, and that is the history of the traveling carnival and of the circus. Why would Henry need books on that topic if all the work he's ever done is on animatronics and diamonds? He needs it because the origins of Fazbear are rooted in traveling circuses and carnivals. It was a hit, and so the first years of this business. So this circus.
Oh, great. This place has changed.
Began. But now the question is, who else was there? And I don't mean human characters, let's be honest, we don't have many of them that are actually important, especially not back in the 1970s. I mean, which of the Fazbear characters were
Make way for the...
Bruster. As I mentioned, during Halloween, you get a number of mini games that take place in Carnival and settings, namely Baza Blast and Carousel. And it's the
Got yourself overloaded.
First. The game itself is pretty straightforward. You know, when you don't have an axe trying to desperately keep your microphone attached. Oh my god! But despite this, Matt did manage to notice a very interesting detail of the level's design around just sitting, waiting to be thrown. I think we could all avoid the pumpkins are something specifically associated with Halloween, and the only event we know to take place at Halloween in this franchise is you get there for Fest. We even get a Halloween-themed version of Pumpkin that appeared during the nightmare level of the Carousel world. The Carousel is from Fall Fest, which means it's from the early part of the franchise. But then, take a look at the characters that are used on the Carousel. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, which, you know, is what you'd expect. Except it's not just the original versions from FNAF 1. The one that immediately stands out to me is this white and pink version of Foxy. Funtime Foxy? Well, kinda. Because you might also notice it has a hooked hand. Something that Funtime Foxy is clearly lacking in Sister Location. However, there is a version of Funtime Foxy with a hooked hand, and that's in FNAF World, a game that came out before Sister Location and doesn't have any other Funtime animatronics present, implying Funtime Foxy didn't originally belong with that group of animatronics. Instead, belonging to an earlier set. This carousel tells us exactly that is. The other characters on this ride, besides Funtime Foxy and the original 4, all have rosy red cheeks, which aligns with the toy animatronics from FNAF 2. Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and Funtime Foxy, the toy version of Foxy. The toy animatronics being here feels wrong. The toys don't become a thing until 1987 with their special recognition software and new, more complex endoskeletons. They replace the old, withered versions of the original Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy from the original Freddy's. How then are they on a ride from 1970? Well, this is because I don't think the toy animatronics are meant to call back to the 1983 Freddy's animatronics. They're supposed to be referencing the original Circus costumes. Going back to the Mimic story, once Edwin abandons the warehouse, Fazbear employees are sent in to collect any Fazbear property, things like their costumes. One character mentions a few of them: a brown Freddy Fazbear costume, a yellow Chica costume, a Foxy costume, a Bonnie costume. The original 4 were all in existence as costumes before their introduction as animatronics at Freddy Fazbear's. What's even crazier is the designs of those costumes actually exist. A few years ago there was a, let's just say, virtual animatronic FNAF artist that dropped an image onto the FNAF subreddit. Zero context or explanation. That images contain Scott's original copyright. These images were commissioned by Scott, which makes them a good piece of evidence then. And what are these images of? Versions of Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica in a similar style to the mascot costumes you'd find at a theme park at Disneyland, all with large proportions and big round heads in order to have a human fit inside them. These appear to be the original costumes for the characters. And where were these costumes used? I suspect they were worn at the circus. Why? Well, notice the bright cheeks. Exaggerated features like big red noses or cheeks have been used by clowns and circus performers for centuries. Joseph Grimaldi is recognized as being the ancestor of the modern clowns, and in 1802 he created the design for his most iconic character, Joey the Clown. And one of this character's iconic features was painted red cheeks. Similarly, Albert Fratellini is known to have helped redefine a type of clown in the mid-1900s known as the August Clown, complete with the bright red nose we know today. Why did both these performers feel it necessary to have bright red features for the evolution of the clown? Because when the word clown was first recorded in 1560, it meant rustic or peasant. This often boiled down to one simple stereotype: the town drunk, who you would often see after you had a bit too much to drink, with bright red nose lips and red cheeks. This happens when your body isn't able to digest alcohol properly, causing a release of histamines that essentially cause your face to have an allergic reaction, namely red cheeks and nodules. The idea of referencing this was to make clowns or characters immediately look foolish, silly, or disarming, so people would be quicker to laugh at them rather than be scared of them, which is pretty ironic when you think about it. That is why I believe these costumes are circus costumes. Not because they're trying to make characters look like drunks, that wouldn't be very child-friendly. It was to evoke those same reactions of silly, goofy fun. And the kicker is you can see this trait carried over into the most definitively circus costume we've got available, Elephant costume down in the basement. Usually you don't get a chance to see them up close, but freeze the frame just right, or, search the game files, and you'll find that although a little faded, it too has rosy red cheeks. So red cheeked characters, like the ones we see in these designs, would have been right at home at a circus, which also opens up the door to other red cheeked characters from this franchise to potentially be part of the original roster. Maybe characters that weren't originally animal costumes are more likely humans wearing the
What the
same.
fuck am I looking for?
Case in point, Balloon Boy. Balloon Boy has never really fit in anywhere. We turned on FNAF 2 and he was just there, and we hated him ever since. I said, read this. But in Security Breach, he got his own arcade cabinet, Balloon World, and if you played that game, you'd see a circus tent in the background. Balloon Boy's open standalone adventure places him at the circus. But while he never fit in with FNAF 2's characters, he did have a striking resemblance to a handful of characters in Sister Location and Circus Baby. Other wooden puppets like the Magician and Fortune Teller, all jobs that could be found at a circus. Selling balloons was an important part of any circus, so Balloon Boy with his little sign offering them to children would be right at home with the rest of them. And to top it all off, when Funko decided to release their new circus line of FNAF products, it contained not just clown versions of all the characters, but versions of all of them wearing Balloon Boy's iconic outfit. We were being shown that balloon characters, and specifically that outfit, are inherently tied to the circus. Balloon Boy has to be a part of this. Fullfest is where he finally makes sense. Another example would be Circus Baby. She's been showing up a lot in recent games, just like the circus imagery, so it feels like Steel Wool are purposely trying to connect the two. She's also got the red
If I try
cheeks
Shin Yan here, since I want Eula and Amber to be together.
Right in at a circus.
Maybe I could take advantage of True Pyro instead.
Maybe this character, whose placement in the timeline has perplexed us for so long, belongs way earlier in the franchise's history than any of us expected. But above those two, in the books there is one other costume that gets called out, the core four, but always one more, the Jester costume. Now, I'm sure Matt is once again freaking out because Jesters aren't clowns and they aren't part of a circus, and dude, I get it, just trust me on this. In that quote from the Mimic story about
Sure.
the costumes, after listening
Very
to the main
convincing
four
argument from a
characters,
theorist.
they finished off by adding and bright pink, yellow, green, or Jester costumes, similar to the colours we see Sun wearing in Security Breach. Yeah, I know, they're a little off, but they're pretty close. And just look at the rest of his costume. Curly pointed toes, bells, puffy trousers, or pants I suppose, and the tutu-like frills on his waist and ankles. He is 100% meant to be a court jester. He even jumps out of a freaking castle when we first meet him in Security Breach, and as Matt was very keen to point out, jesters originated as performers for royalty in their castles during the Middle Ages. Finally, there's the epilogues, where the jester character once again returns. So this time, we get a description
Ready for
of its
reconnaissance.
mask. Quote, Lucia stepped up to the costume, suppressing a shiver at the jester's leering, toothy grin. Wide eyes. One of Sun's most distinct features is his obnoxious
Oh, they're above. God damn it, I'm an idiot. Of course, why would they be on the ground?
Definitely give off that leering vibe that Lucia was describing. So even though Sun doesn't have the red cheeks like we talked about, he still appears to be very obviously connected to the original crew, Freddy, Chica, Foxy, and Bonnie, as well as the circus. He is the last one mentioned when they're all being listed off, as if the costumes were put together like they came from the same collection of characters. Characters that came from Fazbear's circus days. Some of them would actually make a lot of sense as characters in a traveling circus. In the Tales story Bobby Dots, we get a bit of much-needed backstory on this character who just showed up in Security Breach, not matching any of the 80s-tastic designs of Betaplex. It turns out they weren't always a daycare attendant, but instead a performer. They put on shows where Sun would be the hero, and when the lights went out, Boom would appear as the story's villain. That ties into the comedy and tragedy masks that we found in Ruin. Masks that display Sun and Boom's face. So it would have also been an ideal performance to keep kids entertained at Circus Day. And later on, when the daycare was introduced, that same Bobby Dot story describes the daycare's design as a carnival-like space, hammering home the connection to the character's origins. And at the icing on the cake, during Hell 1 and 2, he is the one who face when we're trying to fix celebrates the carousel from those long Fall Fest days. He's been there since the start. And when you think about it, in the early days of the franchise, when you're trying to keep costs down, buying a full mascot costume or fursuit from a trusted provider can cost upwards of $5,000, while costumes for professional jesters and clowns are typically just a few $100, keeping costs nice and low when you're first starting out. It really feels like the circus origin is helping characters that are out of place have a place to finally belong. Southern Moon, Baby, Balloon Boy, all of them will be right at home here at the circus. However, Fall Fest isn't just the origins of the Fazbear franchise, it's also the origins of William Afton's first major tragedy. Phantom Blast in Hell 1 and 2 is a shooting gallery that matches the design of the hub world during the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. Dreadbear even makes an appearance in the attraction, so this attraction really takes place during Fall Fest.
Does this take us to a domain thingy or something?
The last level ends with you shooting a number of rockets and popping all the balloon versions of the animatronics that appear. Doing so seems to cause a chain reaction that leads to the whole thing ending up in flames.
Oh, that's
when you get back
fun.
to the final level, the place is burned to the ground. We see the same thing happen during the carousel run. As you try to fix it, sparks fly and the thing lights up, leading to the nightmare version of the level where the whole place is already ablaze. And if you go out of bounds during that carousel level, you can see the red sky, burnt trees, water tower, and wind that are all present during that final Phasm Blast level off the distance. Steel Wolf is clearly showing us that, much like every other establishment in this franchise, this event, Fest 1983, ended in fire. 1983 sucked for this franchise, but especially
I won't let you down.
he loses his kid to a malfunctioning Springlock suit and his other son's negligence. Threadbare's family died and gets shut down, and to top it all off, he loses the thing that started this whole business, the circus. Steel Wolf is all about a sympathetic villain backstory.
Try not to set up to make it cool.
Get ready for the
Make a
fighting
monster.
champion
They
of
have a
Mondstadt.
reason for it. These aren't just like these supernatural forces that came out of nowhere to just hurt people and punch people, right? Like they were results of other wrongdoing.
Adding a fire to an already pretty awful list of tragedy and loss, it would make it a little less surprising that Afton could suddenly snap and go on a merge swing. But this fire tells us more than just how this first chapter in FNAF history ended. It also tells us that there was one other character here, someone else present from the beginning that you wouldn't suspect, the Mimic. Yeah, I was surprised too, but everything seems to be pointing to this guy being here since the earliest days of the franchise. We get a lot of different descriptions for the Mimic during the epilogues of Tales from the Peter Flax. Sometimes it's a traditional endoskeleton, other times it's a spider-like mess of slimy black wire. But when we are first introduced to it, we're given one extra detail. A detail that I never fully understood. Quote, it wasn't just a basic metal structure. Its steel frame was contained within a built-in collection of metal rods and curved plates and an impressive system of ball joints and pistons. All of it was toppling along, vaguely rectangular-shaped shiny steel skull. The skull was the only part that was shown. The rest was dark, discolored, as if it had survived some kind of fire. That's a pretty specific way of phrasing it, especially when it points out that the head isn't blackened by the same issue. We're being given a clue as to where this mimic came from, because the other detail that's important to bear in mind is that quote comes from the very start of the story, when the endoskeleton first arrives at Peter Flax. It was delivered to this location birds, which tells us that it had to be in a previous Fazbear fire. I believe
these are already
that fire
activated.
was the fire of Fall Fest. But what makes me so sure that the Mimic got burned during that fire specifically? Here's the thing. I know we always joke that everything in this franchise ends in fire, but we can actually count the number of fires on one hand, even if you're an animatronic with only 4 fingers, which means it shouldn't be too difficult to go through each one and determine which one the Mimic came from. Working backwards, there's a fire at the end.
You can count a lot of things with one hand if you know how to count.
The blob steals him away, and the entire Pizzaplex catches fire and collapses. But as we talked about before, it doesn't seem like this is the canon ending of the security breach. We find Gregory's drawings for the non-canon ending.
Like with binary counting, you can count up to 1, 2,
which means this fire wasn't a real fire.
4,
and if it was, this
8,
ending takes
16,
place at the Pizzaplex. So the Mimic
16,
could have been delivered to the Pizzaplex, burned from a
plus
fire, as the
4.
burn trap comes later in the timeline. The second option is the Map 6 fire. But once again, we face issues with the timeline. The Pizzaplex is being built on
Up to
top of
33.
the location, which means the Mimic wouldn't be able to be delivered.
Yeah, I'm still learning binary counting, okay?
To be constructed, like we see in the book, because it would have been the only other fire left other than Fall Fest is the Nat 3 fire. But the owners of Fazbear Fright seemed pretty stoked when they found their first working animatronic, Springtrap. Up until this point, they'd only had bits and pieces like a foxy head. So it feels like they'd have also made a pretty big deal of finding a Mimic. bringing it back to the location, even if they thought it was just an ender. So it doesn't feel like it could be that one either, which leaves only one fire for the Mimic to have been burnt in.
This guy's gonna come to life, I just know it.
Meaning the Mimic has been around for a long time. We actually theorized this back when we covered Sun and Moon after the events of Ruin. We connected the Mimics thrown together, thin, simple animatronic designs that have Sun and Moon. Namely, a very weird but distinct feature, independent team. It's a strange design detail that we've never seen before. So for both characters to have the same detail in the same game makes it seem like they have to be connected in some way. And if Sun and Moon come from the early Full Fest origins of the franchise, then the Mimic being around at the same time would explain that connection. But there's one more detail that tells me that the Mimic has to have been around during the something right under our noses for years. For a while, we believe that the glitch trap virus wanted one, the virus that takes the shape of a yellow bunny rabbit and takes over Vanessa's mind, isn't actually William Afton himself, but instead a version of the Mimic program that is mimicking behavior. In the game, we heard about Fazbear trying to keep costs down for this new game they're developing.
I mean, they sent us that stuff in the first place with no explanation. Told us to scan it. Said it would expedite the process so we wouldn't need to program any counterfeiting ourselves. It was a budget thing. Yes, it was just junk. Circuit boards, things like that.
That game was Help Wanted. It's an infamous game that takes the original FNAF games and turned them into a VR experience, which is exactly what the Mimic program and storytelling was. It's a simple template-style software that takes previously created stories and rearranges them into new scenarios for VR, AR, and arcade games. That is what H-Trap is. The Mimic program, having been scanned into the system, gets a crash course in Afton.
Fett Scott.
This explanation that never sat right with me. If the Glitch Trap Mimic was learning about Afton from the in-universe games of FNAF 1 to 6, then why does he take this form? Afton in all of those games, even in the Infinite mini games, is always wearing his Springbok suit, because that was the costume before Fredbear's family died. But the version of the suit the Mimic shows us Glitch Trap is just fun, and at the time, we'd never seen this version. Because this isn't a Springbok suit, it's a hand-sewn suit with plastic facial features similar to the ones we saw in the concept art. Those suits came from Full Fest, and so it would make sense for this handsome golden rabbit suit to have also come from the same time period. But for the Mimic to have been able to copy this design, it would have to have some memory of this version of its memory bank prior to being uploaded into the uploaded game system. It would have to have observed Afton performing this iconic golden rabbit costume alongside a golden singing bear at Full Fest. The Mimic would have to be around during the early costume days of the franchise. Hey-Girl did say the circuit boards looked pretty old after all.
It was just junk. Circuit boards, things like that. Looked pretty old.
Maybe the Mimic was originally meant to mimic Afton specifically. I'm not entirely sure of this, to be honest, but it does feel like this is where the clues might be heading. Both Full Fest and the Diner were open until 1983 after all, so they coexisted for at least 4 years, with the Diner opening 1979, and we know that Afton was performing a Spring Body at the Diner, so it's possible Mimic was part of Afton's plan to expand the business. He could literally be in 2 places at once. Eventually, the Mimic would be locked underground, with some circuit boards to take the programming set aside just in case. And when the Mimic software was finally used again to help speed up the process of a new VR game, it showed all of those old FNAF games. And while it watched and learned, it recognized someone. William Afton, the golden rabbit from the circus, and so decided to take on the form it remembered from all those years ago, creating the monster we have spent the last 3 games and 2 DLCs trying to stop. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
I feel like I had to make a disclaimer for this video given the rather dodgy nature of leaks as a Hoyoverse creator, and the fact that while I'm not restricted in what I'm allowed to say, I don't want to burn any bridges. This video will in no way disseminate information on content for future versions. My goal is to discuss how leaks became so widespread throughout Homestead's community, and the consequences that followed as a result. It was something I felt like was worth talking about, since while I don't particularly care to engage in drama or discourse about this, I believe there's a lot that can be learned from all this, especially when it comes to game designs. Almost every player who spends any amount of time browsing platforms in which video games are discussed is got to be made aware of future content long before it's officially announced by developers. So new games being developed, people getting their hands on a game before it's even purchasable in stores, game review sites having early access, individuals are even willing to spend ridiculous amounts of money to get a copy of it. Like, I remember XBC offered to pay out like Dollars to Rockstar to let it play GTA 6 in advance, so the concept of leaks is by no means endemic to oil leaks. However, among the gacha industry where players always enjoy looking at future content,
Well,
have I seen such aggressive consumption of leaks?
the only time you can see
So in today's video, we'll be discussing lifestyle
characters in this view on another angle than just here.
had no choice but to join in. Considering not everyone has the wherewithal to drop hundreds of dollars in microtransactions on a whim, or Slack encourages finding.
Yeah, they do have one eye closed when they're doing that. That's so stupid.
Several updates ahead of the global player base to look at what the
You don't do that with a bow. Go to any archery tournament. Everyone knows this. If you want realistic archery, go watch anything, any Japanese media. Even if it's a slice of life thing or an actual show with archery, you'll notice something very peculiar about their archery, and that's the fact that it's really realistic most of the time. And that's because archery is like a very vital part of Japanese culture still. Like archery clubs are a thing in most Japanese high schools. Yeah, they're really popular.
To be fair, they're within their right to do so. There's a recent video game companies make all developers and involved parties sign NDAs that say to your house and tell me. It's both to have control over the anticipation of said title, but more importantly,
in most Western media, it's typically the image of an archer is someone with like large breasts. If it's a fantasy, there may be an elf and like very beautiful. But in Japan, it's flat-chested women if they are gonna have women as archers, and it's mostly male that are archers. Because realistically, boobs would get in the way. Big boobs, specifically. For archery. I mean, that was a whole joke in Kaguya-sama Love is War. Oops, wrong way.
With the time-sensitive nature of units giving you a finite window of opportunity, it's want to know if it's good. 9 months after, there's a chance to have to wait for a rerun.
I'll go with this team.
While they allow you to learn about a new character early, there's always a chance that set intel might be premature, resulting in players forming inconclusive assumptions about a unit that they need to not both of them believing they're bad when they're good, or both of them believing they're good when they're bad. So the only way for players to have an accurate understanding of a unit's potential is by finding things out for themselves and then having even more time to wait until more information comes out. In light of this, more players are entering this space and are more readily accessible.
Yep, here we go. I fucking called it. This is no one's surprise.
Methodologies for judging the usefulness comparatively faster, and much of that was because of these.
Beg for mercy.
They were for the most part completely solved. I'm not able to show you everyone would have level show us how strong you realize the potential you crafted the style of most by virtue of the
Freeze to the core.
Other nature reason behind the rise of leaks is of course anticipation.
Beg for mercy.
To expect the not so distinct nature has been.
Here we go.
Shudder.
Companies like release trailer sequence to build a fight instead of just releasing a game out of the blue. Signals are well versed in visual marketing. Acron is these tools all the way to standard version 2. It's compared to the playable 2.1. Players understand it. Interesting in one time of discussion have
No one escapes
not
my
the last
sight.
line represent. The campus posts circulating to social platforms on Twitter that it needs to such a verbal all the information is exposed to details of the second case. And it's not just a small fraction of sweaty gamers either. Twitter is the most often viral, reaching hundreds of thousands of views. I'm sure there's some players who deliberately choose not to reach it because not having Surprise fresh, but once again, the limited time you have in the team. There's a lot of equity. Why players are so obsessed with all the benefits of the band.
Blood of frost.
Everyone talking about how broken this is, and you still don't want to open. Reversely, you hear everyone talking about how trashy it is, that makes everyone not want to.
God damn it.
It's also
Why does it always have to be like this?
Doesn't look like a generic NPC and isn't explicitly a villain who's dead will be playable. Alpha, Silver, Wolf, and Blade all become obtainable in the game, then it only makes sense for Sin to be playable as well. And so naturally, players want to find out what kind of playstyle he has. Then you have Robin, who plays a minor yet critical role in the Pennycook storyline, and she was script marketed to us alongside Lupo. Consequently, players wanted to see what her moveset is, and now there are dozens of videos on YouTube and Twitter about her very unique ultimate. I can't show it in this video because I said I wouldn't show leaks explicitly, but I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, while consumption of leaks was always present in Genshin, exemplified by players endeavoring to collect all the suspension materials and whatnot so they can host a nice level them upon release, I find that it's even more prevalent in Starro for 3 reasons. First and foremost, combat. Starro's combat has empirically taxed their knowledge of the game and its characters a lot more than Genshin has, while the latter might be more complex in the sense that real-time action has a lot more variables and things to consider. In practice, Genshin Impact is very easy. Most players don't have to be entirely familiar with terms like internal cooldown, full damage, or snapshotting to clear everything in the game, provided they have a surface level understanding of their team and decent level of artifacts. You can clear 412 style of this, no problem. Contrast, Starro's a bit more demanding. While ultimately, yes, you can alleviate much of this game's difficulty by having really decked out characters, being privy to every unit's turn rotation, and more importantly, knowing turn rotations are enemies has a lot of impact on your success. When reaching the end game, a strong party, don't know the mechanics of a boss or a fight, you will lose. Party composition and elemental coverage take precedence. While in Genshin, you can have like 2 or 3 parties take care of every possible situation you'll come across as part of this. In Starro, that number exceeds 6 or more, especially given there are multiple viewpoints. You might have strong teams for memory or chaos, but you're falling short on units to clear pure fiction or vice versa. As a result, players turn to the future to see which units can patch up the holes in their roster. If they find that pure fiction is uncomfortably difficult, they might check to see if there's an erudition character coming up who can help them out with that. Alternatively, if they're having problems with getting one-shotted in Sword Disaster, they might try to look for a tank releasing next patch. All that's to say, Starro puts more pressure on the player in regards to considering who they need to pull for. Granted, you don't need every 5-star in the game. You do need good coverage. You can't just make a random party of your favorite characters. Considering free-to-play players have to be very resourceful with their cheats, leaks offer them the ability to look for the most optimal units to prioritize and save up for, so there is a more practical incentive to keep up with units coming out in 2.2, 2.3, and so on. Reason number 2 is an extension of Reason 1. Starro's only major source of gameplay is combat. Genshin Impact has 2 forms of gameplay, combat and exploration. It's a relevant amount of players who don't even care to engage in the meta and play Genshin like it's a hybrid between Breath of the Wild, Minecraft, and Animal Crossing. Going through every corner to bat, completing all the puzzles, finding every chest, hitting trees to collect materials to the teapot, stuff like that. Starro's level of exploration is close to non-existent outside of events, meaning the only thing you can really spend your time on is combat. Thankfully, there was plenty of things to do in that respect. MLC, Pure Fiction, and Zenuni with all of its game modes. That's where the player base spends the majority of their time after they're up to date on the story. But once you complete MLC and Pure Fiction, there really isn't a whole lot to do. I'll start on place.
Finally.
As said earlier, it's the build of excitement and anticipation for you. Just giving us something to look forward to, but there's really not much else to do in the game besides grind for more relics and stuff.
That wasn't worth it. That was so much time. I should have just done my normal daily commissions.
Reason number 3 is that investing in Starro units is far more expensive than Genshin. I regret not bringing this up in my 2 expensive video, but one thing I neglected to mention is how much it takes to bring a unit to optimal or near optimal state. While we are allowed to collect materials for a character,
Add Astra.
massive quantity just to finish one.
Thank you for completing.
You have to level up their abilities, but you also have to align
Add
with your
Astra.
and interests. Furthermore, there's still the weapon and character essential materials you have to obtain, and worst of all, relics. I already voiced my grievances about the relic system back in my relic